Hello and welcome in for another episode of Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. If you are joining me here today on YouTube, as always, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. As always, too, make sure you throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Throw me a comment here or comment on a previous video. Would love to hear from you guys, get your opinions on my bad takes, and just hear from you guys, get your thoughts on some of these playoff games and playoff series that we're seeing right now in the NBA. That is what we're going to talk about today, as we'll get into that. And again, this is Below the Rim Basketball, and I am Quinn Carey. Thank you so much for being here. So, crazy day in the NBA playoffs, coming off of Tuesday night's games. And before I dive into all of the games, I just wanted to start with just something I was thinking about last night, sitting there watching these games. Awesome theater last night, just super compelling. And there's a lot of haters of the NBA, primarily because of its regular season and how fans don't think that it's that important game to game. Guys don't try, don't play defense, all of those things. But through two games in the 2026 NBA playoffs, we are getting exactly what we asked for as fans. We are getting an incredible fan experience watching these games. We've had drama, we've had star players playing well, we've had upsets. These series are going to get extended even in the first round. So from a fan's perspective, through two games of these NBA playoffs, this has been absolute theater. This has been about as good as you could ask for. And for all those people that were saying, well, the NBA regular season was terrible, the NBA playoffs better live up to the hype and better be one of the best that we've seen. Through two games, I think we're seeing that, just absolute mayhem, tons of upsets last night. And it's just going to continue, I think. I think this league there's as much parity as there's ever been in the league today. And so I expect that to continue throughout the course of the playoffs here. And just what an entertaining night of basketball in the association, and what an entertaining first couple playoff days here for us. So I've just been loving that. Wanted to make sure I said that, just because, again, I think unfairly, the NBA gets hated on a little bit too much, particularly throughout the course of the regular season, which I understand that the level of defense is maybe not the same as it is in the playoffs, that intensity. You also don't have the same amount of time to scout teams and have this preparation that you do when you're playing a single team for an entire series, as opposed to you got a back-to-back or you got a game every other day in the regular season against a new opponent. It's just difficult. And obviously the playoffs is always different in any sport, not just basketball. We see that in the NHL right now. We see it in the NFL playoffs when that comes. We see it in the WNBA playoffs. We see it all over the place. The playoffs are just different. So haters can hate all they want, but so far we have had an incredible, including the play-in games, starting in the play-in games. It's just been absolute theater, great basketball for us. So super engaging. I wanted to make sure I said that, because I thought so far that these NBA playoffs and play-in games have just been absolutely incredibly entertaining. And I've been loving every second of it. So haters, probably not watching anyway. So you can keep your hate and deal with it. So we're going to enjoy our basketball. But now we'll get into the games. Again, crazy night last night. Two big upsets that we'll talk about here in a minute. But the game that I want to focus on to start is Lakers-Rockets. As we talked on this show before the series, I said that I didn't think I loved the sums of the LA Lakers parts compared to the Houston Rockets parts. Without Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, I thought Houston was in line to win this series for sure. And I said I thought LeBron James could will his team without Luka and AR to at least 2 wins. So I had the Rockets winning this series in 6. And clearly I was very wrong on that. I think LeBron can obviously carry this team to probably 4 wins in this series, even if Luka and Austin Reeves don't come back. The door is now open for those two to return, potentially in this series. But absolutely, you're looking at this saying, man, if we can win one of these road games in Houston, it feels like a guarantee that one of those two guys are going to come back for a potential second round series, which is likely where they'll be if they keep playing this way. Again, it's early in the series. You won your 2 home games. You got to go to Houston. Now a lot can flip. Could be 2-2 coming back to LA, and then all of a sudden it feels a little different with the momentum on Houston's side. But as of right now, LeBron James is just playing spectacular. 28, 8, and 7 last night. What can't this guy do? It makes me happy to see on social media hopping on there, and just so many people that have had that GOAT debate between him and Jordan and stuff. I fall on LeBron's side in that debate, and so it was a little heartwarming to me to get on there and just see the response to how he's playing at age 41, year 23, and a lot of people just saying, this. You can talk about Jordan all you want. No one's ever done this. We're never going to see another player like this. So honestly, Jordan-LeBron debate, who cares about it? Let's just appreciate greatness with LeBron James, because this is just absolutely incredible, unlike anything we have literally ever seen before in NBA basketball. So unbelievable from LeBron. He just keeps getting it done. He still looks like the best player on the floor. He looks like he's a top 5 guy in the league right now with the way that he's playing at age 41, with a lot of those other guys that are in the top 5, top 10, all obviously in their primes or close to it. So just incredible from LeBron. Does a great job getting his teammates engaged. A Lakers team that I did not think was a great shooting team overall throughout the course of the year, and all of a sudden they got guys getting wide open, good looks off LeBron's penetration and kickouts, along with Marcus Smart. I thought Marcus Smart was incredible in that game. I thought he was super efficient. 23 points, I'm correct, 25 points for Smart with 7 assists, and was just the IQ of Smart and LeBron is just a lethal weapon for the Lakers to have, particularly in this series. KD came back yesterday for the Rockets, scoring as he does with KD, scoring 23 points, which is not that crazy of a number for KD, but 7 of 12 shooting, just as efficient as ever, as efficient as a scorer as it gets in the league and in NBA history, honestly. So even with him coming back, the youth of the Rockets, I keep saying it, they feel like they are a great collection of parts that just does not have any cohesion, is not ever really gelled. So even with that, the IQ of Smart and LeBron was just too much for the Rockets last night. And just another win. The Lakers go up 2-0 in their series, which is pretty remarkable. Of all the series that are tied 1-1 right now after last night, I think a lot of us would not anticipate that the Lakers series would be a 2-0 series. And if we did, a lot of us probably anticipated that it would be the Houston Rockets up 2-0 at this point. So just incredible stuff from LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, per usual with LeBron. And they've put themselves in a great position where if they can go into Houston now up 2-0, and if they can just get a split of those 2 games, you're going back to LA up 3-1 with a chance to close out that series. And you could be done with your series potentially before Oklahoma City is done with their series if Phoenix could ever force a win and get that series to 5. So just remarkable. Congratulations to the Lakers. Long way to go. The Rockets have a ton of problems right now. Offensively, we're seeing Alfred Şengün, who's one of their more reliable offensive players, essentially got benched towards the end of last night's game because of defensive reasons. And you worry about that going forward. Are they going to be able to play him late in games because of that defensive factor? And obviously that takes away a huge element from them offensively, where they already struggle on that side of the ball. So a lot of issues going on for the Houston Rockets. I think the Lakers have done a great job of exposing those things, playing to their strengths in this series so far, and I expect to see more of the same. You're probably going to see the Rockets come in with a full force effort, totally locked in Game 3, and I anticipate that they'll probably win Game 3, but I think it's that 4th game that's going to kind of determine the series and where it's going to go, because if the Lakers can steal that Game 4, go up 3-1, I think they're in the driver's seat, and we're likely going to see them in the second round at that point. So that was the late game last night, but again, just one that was on top of mind. His last game I watched, and just what LeBron does at 41 is remarkable. So probably, arguably, the biggest news of the night was in our San Antonio and Portland Trailblazers game, where not only did you have Portland upset San Antonio, get themselves a win on the road to flip home court to the Trailblazers' advantage, which is pretty crazy, but you had Victor Wembanyama, as we all saw, go down in that second quarter with a pretty bad, if you saw the replay, he goes down pretty hard. It's a huge body coming crashing down, and his neck snaps and his head hits right onto the hardwood there. And he just kind of goes limp and just kind of lays there for a couple seconds. So really scary moment. It does appear that everything's okay. He's just in concussion protocol now. So that is obviously the huge news for the Spurs. We saw it once he went out, that team is so young, and I touched on this in our last episode, that even with Wemby, I think that they maybe are still a year or 2 away from really being legitimate NBA title contenders. I absolutely, obviously, anticipate them winning this first round matchup. But now if Wemby is going to miss any extended time, we saw with Portland the way that they've been playing down the stretch here. They are red hot. The leadership of Drew Holiday, along with the play of Deni Avdija, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson is finally starting to come into his own, kind of showing why he was such a highly touted pick right after Wemby 2-3 years ago when they got drafted. So Portland has some stuff where if Wemby, if he misses any extended period of time, while I still think it's a concussion protocol, I don't think that Wemby is going to miss the rest of the series because of something like this, or even miss 2, 3, 4 games. But I do think he can miss our next game here coming up, which would be huge. For if Portland, you go home and there's no Wemby, you just saw that you can beat those guys. You can absolutely hang with the rest of those guys on San Antonio, and that puts all the pressure on San Antonio and the Spurs and those young guys and De'Aaron Fox to come through and get a win without Wemby. And I don't know if that team right now, again, 2 years from now, I think they'll be more than fine if Wemby has a couple dings and bruises along the way to pick up some wins. But right now in a playoff scenario, I'm not sure that that team has the experience to win without Wemby. So if he is to miss another game, I anticipate that it's going to be a dogfight. I would not be shocked at all to see Portland pick up another win and go up 2-1 in the series if Wemby does not play. And God forbid he miss any sort of extended time, because if he is to miss multiple games in this series, this could be a bitter end to San Antonio well before it was expected for their season to end. So we'll monitor that. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, prayers up and thoughts to Wemby. Hopefully everything's okay there. Obviously, just a absolutely dynamic, incredible player that we've all loved getting a chance to watch as he's blossomed and started to grow in front of our very eyes. So never want to see anything like that. Hope that he has a speedy recovery. But this does make things a whole lot more complicated for the Spurs to pull out a win in this series. So major news there. We'll keep monitoring it. Again, I don't anticipate that in this first round, even if he is to miss 2-3 games, I still think San Antonio is going to be able to find a way to eke out enough games. But if you go without Wemby, or if he's even only 75% of himself going forward, anything like that, I don't think they have much chance, particularly if they're able to get through the second round. I don't think they'll have much chance without him at 100%. So I got to monitor Wemby. Feel really bad for him, obviously for the Spurs organization, and just, again, thoughts and prayers with Wemby. Hopefully everything is okay with him and we get him back on the court soon. So last game I want to touch on from last night, the third of games, was actually our first game that was on TV, was the Philadelphia 76ers. Who would have frickin' thought? Go in and not only beat the Celtics, but kind of shellac them and kind of thump them pretty dang good. VJ Edgecomb was absolutely freaking sensational. That guy is incredible, and he's going to be forced to reckon with for several years to come here. Him and Maxey are going to be an awesome guard pairing there in Philadelphia for a long, long time. But he goes for 30 and 10, passing Tim Duncan as the youngest player in NBA playoff history to score 30 points, have 10 rebounds, or 10 assists, have a 30 and 10 game. So he's now the youngest player to do that. Tyrese Maxey from the Sixers also chipped in 29 points, so you're getting 59 points between Edgecomb and Maxey. And for the Celtics, outside of Jaylen Brown, they weren't hitting their shots, which we've talked about a little bit on the show. Celtics are very reliant on their three-point shooting. So if you're a team and you want to pick and choose your spots to beat them, if they have an off shooting night, we saw last night, Philadelphia, the 7 seed that has not been super strong without Joel Embiid, is able to go in there and thump them by over 15 points. So pretty crazy. Was not anticipating that one at all. It felt like in both that game and San Antonio, when Wemby went down in San Antonio, that shifted things a little bit. But early, it felt like one of those games where you're like, all right, this is what we like to see. You're having these lower seeds, 7 seeds starting to compete a little bit and keep these games kind of close. But just like always with those teams and in those matchups, you anticipate I'm going to check back in third quarter, or if I get up to go do something, when I come back, it's going to be tied up, or Celtics are going to be taking the lead. And that just never happened. So that was pretty crazy to me to just watch, and the Celtics just never really felt like they had a chance to get back in it. They got it close at several different points there in the second and third quarter, but then there'd be an answer from Philadelphia. Edgecomb or Maxey was usually that answer, giving you a big bucket or a little mini 5-0, 7-2, something like that, little run from them. So Philadelphia goes in and beats Boston. That series is now tied up 1-1. Portland beats San Antonio. That's now tied up 1-1. On Monday, we had the Timberwolves beating the Nuggets, which I have been pounding the drum for the Nuggets and how I thought they were going to win that series in 5. Obviously, it becomes a lot more difficult now going on the road. You got to win 2 more on the road and then close out at home to win in 5. I think it's much more likely that if they're to win that series, it's in 6. But what I think I underestimated in that matchup is that those two teams just know each other so freaking well. This is now their 4th playoff matchups in the last 5 years, I believe, is 5 or 6 years that they're matched up against each other. So they have played 30-plus playoff games against each other. These two teams know each other super well. The GM for the Minnesota Timberwolves is the former Nuggets GM who back 2 years ago when they met in the playoffs, there was lots of talk that they built this roster in Minnesota specifically with Denver in mind and how to stop Jokic, how to stop the rest of that team. And so this is just a tough matchup for Denver, even though I don't think this is the Timberwolves' best year in recent memory. This is just a tough matchup. Rudy Gobert, this is shocking and crazy to even be saying, but Rudy Gobert is thoroughly outplaying by their standards, Nikola Jokic at this point. Obviously, Nikola Jokic's stats have still been really good. His numbers still look really good, but his efficiency is down. His aggressiveness has been super weird. First halves of both game 1 and 2 has just not really been hunting his own shot, maybe slightly by design to get other guys involved. But it's just been a weird series from Jokic, and I would say that Rudy Gobert is doing exactly what his job is. And then shout out to guys like Naz Reid and Julius Randle, who when Rudy Gobert went out and got an early 4th foul there in the start of the second half on Monday, they were being physical, they were going outside of their comfort zones defensively, and they were really giving Jokic all he could handle. So shout out to the Timberwolves. Against my better judgment, they have been the team that is causing a lot of problems for the Nuggets, and arguably, I know Oklahoma City is going to cause tons of problems for any team that they play, and it's going to be a tough out for anybody. But I truthfully feel like this Minnesota team, from looking at the West, I think this might be the toughest matchup for Denver. Now 2 games into it, I think they'd be handling their business against some of these other teams. But Minnesota just poses that tough challenge. Their size is unique and different than a lot of teams in the league today, and the amount of bigs that they play and their ability to space the floor with their bigs. So it's just been a super unique matchup. And so we'll see what happens in that one. I'm still rocking with Denver. I still think they're going to win the series. I don't feel nearly as confident in my Denver in 5 pick. I had somebody comment on my short that I posted about that take, and he said this is a loser take. And right now he's looking like he might be right. That very well might have been. I think I was thoroughly overlooking and underestimating the Minnesota Timberwolves in that one. But that series is now tied up 1-1. You had the Hawks coming all the way back against the Knicks to tie that series up 1-1, which just a monumental collapse from the Knicks. I don't know how you lose that game. Jalen Brunson did not have a good game, 10 of 26 shooting, just too many shots and just not enough offense down the stretch for the Knicks, which we've talked about with Atlanta's defensive abilities and the Knicks' kind of lack of offense and the waves that they go in and dry spells that they can hit. That we knew that was going to be a problem, and they blew a big lead, up a dozen going into the 4th quarter on Monday, and blow that lead, just can't get any offense going. And CJ McCollum, shout out to him, masterclass from him, looking like Lehigh versus Duke back in the day. So that series is now tied up 1-1, and then you had the Cavs just absolutely dismantle the Raptors, which I had said that was going to be one of my picks. I was going to go with the Raptors because I thought that they might just have a better defensive effort, and they did in the first half. And they only missed their cover by a half point in the end. They lost by 10. The spread was 9.5. But in the second half, it was same type of story as the first game. The Cavs just come out and roll offensively, and the Raptors never really had a shot there in the second half. So our under did hit. So if you were tailing the show and following the picks that we had, our under in that game did hit, which I decided to go with instead of the spread for the Raptors, which was a good call. So that's about all we got on the recaps of the games and all of that. Just, again, absolute mayhem going on in the NBA playoffs and across the league right now. Super excited for tonight's game with Detroit and Orlando. I think we're going to see Detroit get back on track. I'm predicting Detroit thumping of Orlando, even that series up. And then that one's going to be super interesting if they can tie it up 1-1, go to Orlando. A lot of pressure on Detroit at that point to win a game in Orlando. And there's a good chance that if Orlando keeps playing the way that they are, starting to look like the team that we all anticipated they would maybe be going into this season, then it could be a long series there for Detroit. And with the way that the Cavs are playing, which I didn't see the Cavs looking like this when I was making my bracket predictions, that could be a tough second-round matchup for Detroit if they are to end up with Cleveland, particularly if Cleveland can wrap up their series in 4 or 5 games, which it's looking like they've got all the ingredients to do so. So we'll see what happens there. But again, tonight, I do like the Pistons. We'll talk about that in a second for our best bets. But last thing I want to touch on, I've talked about, I enjoy watching Golden State, and I've rooted for them for a long time, over 10 plus years since Curry and Clay got there. I love my shooters, so I've always rooted for Golden State since those guys were arriving. It looks like, from what I'm seeing from reports, it looks like it is a very strong likelihood that Steve Kerr is not going to be returning to the Golden State Warriors next year, which is not that big of a surprise given the contract situation and then given all the speculation, how they ended that last game, him, Draymond, and Steph, hugging it out, him being so appreciative. It felt like maybe this was the end of the run, but it was one of those things where I was like, they'll re-sign him. They'll bring him back for another year. He'll ride it out until Steph's done. But it's looking like he might be stepping away, or they might be parting ways mutually and not renegotiating a new contract. So that is super interesting. We'll obviously stay monitored on that. Reports right now that I'm seeing, there's a lot of reports on Todd Golden, the Florida Gators coach, won a national championship last year, was the former, I think his big connection there was he was the former University of San Francisco head coach there in the Bay Area, so he knows the area well. I'm here in Spokane, Washington. When Gonzaga would go down to play San Francisco in the West Coast Conference regular season games, they would move their games to Chase Center because Gonzaga was such a big draw, and maybe they played all their games down there. I didn't follow San Fran that closely, but they would oftentimes play in the Chase Center for their bigger games. So there is a connection there, probably with ownership, probably with some of the general management that knows Todd Golden. He's obviously proven that he is an incredible coach and has had incredible success, one of the young up-and-coming minds in the coaching world down there in Gainesville. So there's a lot of talk about that, would make a ton of sense. But the other name, one other name that I am not seeing floated for the Warriors job, but I saw yesterday was fired from the Chicago Bulls, is Billy Donovan. And I think Billy Donovan is somebody that I would not be shocked at all if we saw end up in Golden State as the next head coach if Kerr is to leave. I think he obviously had tons of success. Funny that the parallel between those two is both the Florida Gators. Obviously, Billy Donovan in that 06-07 season, back-to-back national championships with Florida, then went to Oklahoma City and is now with Chicago. And I think on the NBA level, I never think he's quite had the talent that he probably needs on a roster to really make deep runs, but he did good things when he was in Oklahoma City with that young group. And Chicago has been a little bit of a rougher stop. I don't think that's as much of an indictment on Billy Donovan. I think that it's been years pretty much. Obviously, we had our Derrick Rose little brief blip on the radar, but since Michael Jordan retired, the Chicago Bulls have not really been able to figure it out with whoever that head coach has been. So I don't think the Chicago situation is as much of an indictment on Billy Donovan as others might. And I think that is absolutely a sleeper name. He's a veteran coach that I think could come in and deal with the veterans like Steph Curry. If Draymond is to stay, I think he would be a great personality for guys like that. And is also somebody that knows how to build a culture. And for any young potential draft picks that come in, I think he would be great for keeping them in line, kind of showing them and getting them to buy in to their roles around that Steph Curry-led team. So Billy Donovan would be my name to watch for the Golden State Warriors head coaching job if that is to become available here over the next couple days or weeks. So we'll keep monitoring that. Todd Golden, Billy Donovan, or maybe ex-coach out there that is not on the radar, I haven't seen anything about. So I would love to hear from you guys who you think might be a good candidate for that position. So that's what I got on that. And before we wrap up today, I'll go with our NBA playoff best bets for the night. Tonight is Wednesday, April 22nd. Just two games. We have the Orlando and Detroit game at 4 o'clock. If you're on the East Coast, 7 o'clock, followed by Oklahoma City and Phoenix, which will be at 6:30 or 9:30 if you're there on the East Coast. And my first one I alluded to earlier is I am going to take the Pistons. I'm going to take them minus 8.5. I think you're going to see a much better performance out of Dennis Jenkins, along with Jalen Duren from the Pistons. I think they're going to be much more involved, much more engaged. I think we're going to start to see why those two were talked about so much, why Jalen Duren made his first All-Star team this year. We didn't see that in Game 1. I anticipate that we're going to see a much, much better effort out of those two players in particular here in Game 2. And I also don't expect necessarily that Orlando is going to get the same level of production and scoring from guys like Jalen Suggs and Wendell Carter and some of those guys that were big contributors in there as kind of role players in Game 1. So I don't think you're going to have that same level of offense from Orlando. I think you're going to be a little bit better offensively for Detroit. I think both teams are going to really lock in on the defensive end. Both are good defensive teams, so that's always going to be something that they can hang their hats on. And then I just think, looking back throughout NBA history, this happens a lot where there'd be a surprise in Game 1. All of a sudden it feels like, oh my gosh, are the Pistons in trouble? Is Orlando about to pull off this crazy 8 seed over 1 seed victory in the series? And a lot of the times by Game 2 or by Game 3, things really even out, and that team that was that top seed starts to show why they were that top seed. And I think we're going to see that tonight. I think that Game 1 was probably a wake-up call for Detroit, that they're not just going to come in as the 1 seed and cruise through the playoffs. But they got to lock in. They got to do what has made them successful to this point and execute those things on the court. So I expect to see a much better effort, focus level from the Detroit Pistons tonight. And I'm going with the Pistons minus 8.5 in a little bit of a rout of the Magic. And then in our second game, this one was tough for me. I didn't know where to go from a betting perspective if you had to make a pick on Oklahoma City and Phoenix. I think Oklahoma City's going to win, likely probably in a rout as they do. but 16.5 points on the spread is just too much. 216.5 for the total. I didn't know what to make of that. It went under in the first game, but if Phoenix even has remotely just a slightly better scoring output, that game's going to go over and still not be a close game spread-wise. So I've gone a little off the books here, and we're going to go with Devin Booker from Phoenix Suns over 22.5 points. He scored 23 points in game 1, and I didn't think was particularly one of his best performances by any stretch. Obviously not the team's best performance by any stretch of the imagination. But I do expect, particularly in the first half of this game, I think Oklahoma City is eventually going to run away with this. But I think Phoenix is going to show some of that veteran pride, potentially maybe get Grayson Allen back tonight, which would be huge for them. And if they can have those two things, even if they don't, I think Booker is going to go out there and empty the chamber, if you will. I think he's going to leave everything out there. He's going to look to score, do whatever he can to will them to a victory, or at least try to keep that game close. And for them to have any chance of beating the Oklahoma City Thunder or even competing with the Oklahoma City Thunder, is Devin Booker's going to have to be on, and he's going to have to be scoring, and he's going to have to be kind of leading the way for them offensively. So I anticipate him going over 22.5 points. So that's going to be our second pick of the day. Again, we'll have Pistons minus 8.5 against the Magic. And then in our second game, we're going with Devin Booker over 22.5 points. So that's about all I got for us here today. Again, this is Below the Rim Basketball. I'm Quinn Carey. And if you took time out of your day here to listen to this video, watch this video on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Make sure to throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. Love to hear some of your guys' takes. Feel free to call me out on some of my bad NBA pre-playoff predictions that I've made that are just blowing up in my face right now. Would love to hear from you guys. Any and all engagement is greatly appreciated. So again, this is Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today, and we will talk to you guys on Friday.